Here's what to do for part 2, constructing the pedigree. If you are comfortable with this, after you read the information and think you can do it yourself, you don't need to watch the video. It's just here for support if you're not quite sure how to make it, or you just kind of want to make sure you're doing it right. Please note also, doing this part typed is extra credit. You can do this by hand, so if you just want to get a piece of printer paper, go ahead, take one out of the printer, and work on it while my video is playing at the same time. That is no problem. Alright, so your first thing, turn your paper sideways and write the name of the condition at the top. I'm just going to make one up. You're going to use the condition that you've been researching. Now, my favorite TV show is I Love Lucy, and there's one episode where she believes she's sick and she's always getting in trouble with her husband. They're playing tricks on each other, and her husband Ricky brings in a doctor who's actually an actor and tells Lucy that she has the Goldbluths. So I'm just going to pretend that this is the disease I'm tracking is the Goldbluths. Okay, the last name of the family that you are counseling. Well, since I'm talking about the I Love Lucy show, it's going to be the Ricardos, because their last name was Ricardo. How it is inherited. You have to go back to your summary sheet. I'm going to pretend that mine is autosomal recessive, because that's the most common way. However, yours might be dominant, sex-linked dominant, or sex-linked recessive, and then you're going to follow a completely different pattern. Key. On the side of the paper, make a key. Include how to represent the meaning of the symbols and what the different shadings mean. So, I'm going to add my symbols. Okay, we had squares that were colored and squares that were empty. And if you don't know how to do this on PowerPoint, then have me or somebody else help you. Okay, and empty one. And I'm going to do some rearranging here afterwards. I'm going to go like this. Alright, I need a text box. I'm going to put it right above. Make my font really small, female, without condition. And I capitalized it because of how I formatted it. And this would be a female with the condition. You can also do the half shaded boxes if you want, for if somebody's a carrier. I'm not going to worry about it. So this for me is going to be a male without condition. This would be the male with a condition. If you go to the end of your packet, this pedigree here just shows you some of the extra symbols and how the lines go. Actually, no, it doesn't show you the extra symbols. It shows you how the lines go if you forget about marriage lines versus children lines and things. The page before that shows you extra symbols. If you want to get fancy and include divorce, death. Death would be a slash where the line is longer than half of the circle. If it's to the edges, that would be that half circle for being a carrier of the condition. Adoption, identical twins, fraternal twins would be, they're born at the same time, but they're obviously not identical. You could have a boy and a girl fraternal twin. Identicals have to be identical. Alright, then we did this. We did what the different shadings mean. If you were doing any other conditions, you could add those to the key as well, but that's all I need there because I'm not doing a fancy one. The fancier you get, the more points are available, so just kind of keep that in mind as well. I am giving extra credit on this project if you deserve it. Now that my key is done, we're going to start making our first generation. We will have to have 3 generations total. You're going to connect a square and a circle because that represents our first couple, male and female. It doesn't matter at this point if they are shaded in right now or not. You're going to connect them by a horizontal line, like so. Alright, so let's go back to the instructions here. Either on the marriage line or off to the side, write generation 1. So I'm going to add in another text box and put generation 1 with a Roman numeral. Choose a letter to represent, oops, and I forgot to name them as well. So I'm just going to Control-C is copy, Control-V is paste, Control-C, Control-V. This is Ricky. I'm going to center it. Control-C, Control-V. And this is Lucy. Okay. Now, C. Choose a letter to represent the alleles. Mine is gold blue, so I'm going to use G. Under each person's name, write their genotype. Just make it up. We're going to say Ricky is capital G, little g. And Lucy is little g. Based on the genotypes you give each person, shade them in accordingly. Well, since this disease is recessive, Lucy has it, Ricky does not. So I need to take away his shading, like so. If you had a dominant disease, Ricky would have it, Lucy would not. If you had a sex-linked, you would need to use X's and Y's. So let me just show you, if you have a sex-linked one, I'm going to just make a random text box here, Ricky would be XY, and then you would need to put that superscripted letter. What you do, you highlight it, right-click, font, and you click superscript, and then OK, and it's going to make it raised up like that. Remember, no letters go on the Y. Alright, back to Ricky and Lucy here. Create a Punnett square using the alleles of the couple. Write out the possibilities of every genotype for their children. So to do this, I'm going to insert a table, a 2x2, and I'm going to change the size of it so it's a little more square. You could also do this on a separate page if you don't have a lot of room. I'm going to make it all a little bit easier to see. I'm going to take away, if I can find it, the colors here. Oops, that's not what I wanted. Let's go here. I just want a plain white table. Now, it gets kind of annoying when you're doing it on the computer because then you have to add text boxes everywhere, but Ricky is big G, little g, and then Lucy, I'm just going to use one letter at a time on this side. Oops, not cooperating. Lucy is little g. So little g, I'm going to hit Control C, Control V, and put it there. When you multiply them out, because this is a table, I can actually type in it. G, big letter first. Little g, big G, little g, little g. And now we need to write out our percents. I don't need their phenotypes, just their genotypes. So big G, little g is going to be 2 out of 4, or you could write 50%. Either one. I'm just going to spread it out a little more. And little g is 2 out of 4. And you just leave that by your Punnett square. Okay. Would also be helpful to label who this is for. And so I'm going to add in, because when I'm correcting this and I see Punnett squares all over the place, sometimes it's hard for me to tell which one is which. So I'm going to write that this is generation 1. Because at minimum you'll have 3 of these. Alright. Generation 2. Use a vertical line. So I'm going to go Insert and Shape Line. And it says, use a vertical line between your grandma and grandpa to drop down to the next generation. Make branches for their children. So a drop down line. Now, you can give them as many children as you want. If you want to give your couple 12 children, go ahead. Give them 12 children. Just realize it's going to be more complicated. Alright, like so. Now I'm going to draw lines going down. I'm going to give them 3 kids, even though on the TV show they only had 1. So like so. There's another one. There's another one. Okay, shapes. I'm going to say on their TV show they did have a boy first, so that one's true. And we'll say that they had a second boy, which they did not, but we're pretending. And then a girl over here. Age always goes left to right, so this will be the oldest to the youngest. We need to label this as generation 2, so I'm just going to copy and paste, less work for myself, and make that 2. I'm just going to copy my text box so I can keep reusing my format. Okay. Copy paste, Control C, Control V. Like so. Alright, now my circles and squares got a little bit bigger than before. I would keep yours more compact because you need 3 generations minimum. So just realize you might have to make yours smaller or continue on to a second page. So here we have our 3, and I actually am going to make them smaller because we're going to have to marry somebody in and I need room. What's nice about doing this on the computer is that if you make a mistake, you don't have to erase everything. Alright, name each person. So Little Ricky was their first kid in the TV show. We're going to call him Juan. Ricky was from Cuba. And we're going to call the girl Lolita. Now, for their genotypes, I can't just use any random letters that I want. I have to go back up to my Punnett square and pick things that were possible. Oh, and I made a mistake up here. This should be little g, little g. So my kids here could either be big G, little g, or little g, little g. I should not have anybody that's two capital G's because it's not possible. So we're going to make little Ricky like that, 1, and sure, why not? Now we go and change the filling. She has it because she's two little g's, so does Juan. Little Ricky does not have it, so he will not be filled in. Okay. And I kind of went out of order here, but we're in generation 2. At minimum now, one person needs to get married. Connect their person and their spouse by a horizontal line. So we need to have a marriage. Lolita. Lolita's going to get married. And I'm going to move my key out of the way. I'm going to delete it for now, just so you can see what I'm doing here. And you would still need a key. You could put that on a separate page if you needed more room. Lolita's going to get married. I'm just copying and pasting here, making it easy. Now this person that marries in, it doesn't matter what their genotype is because they're from a different family. So I'm going to say that she married, I don't know, Paco. And Paco is big G, big G. Okay? Every time you have a marriage, you need to create a Punnett square. So I'm just going to copy this all, paste it all, put it right here. It's getting messy. I would probably put these on another page, but I'm just doing this for the sake of you being able to see it. Okay? Lolita and Paco. I changed this to generation 2, so I know it's the marriage right here. Lolita's little g, little g. Paco is big G, so I need to fix how it got multiplied out. Big G, little g, big G, little g. My genotypes here change. Ooh, did those out of order? I don't know what I'm doing. There we go. Okay, everybody now is big G, little g. I was on caps lock, that's why. 100% or 4 out of 4. You could write it either way. So now, as you continue, you're going to make a third generation. So you're going to drop down from your married couple here. Give them children. So now you're going to have a line like this occurring over here. And now, the kids coming from this generation should only be big G, little g for me because there is no possible option. You can include extra marriages, you can have divorces, deaths, adoptions, all that stuff. You just keep continuing through. Minimum of 3 generations, more than that is extra credit. Please note, in generation 3, you have to have somebody marry in that is heterozygous. So the person, if this was my 3rd generation, Paco would have to be big G, little g. The only exception is if somebody is sex-linked, then they should have the disorder. Okay? Then you're going to counsel the person that's at the 3rd level marriage that you created at D here. And I'll go through how to do the counseling part after on the next part. But that's what you need to do. And again, you can get fancier if you want. It's all extra credit. It's all laid out here for you, what you need to do. And then we will come back to part 3 and use the pedigree that you created to counsel your family and if they should have a child or not.